Hello, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying Migraine Awareness Month 2021. My name is Flynn, and today I'm going to be interviewing Alicia, who's one of the key volunteers at Migraine Australia, so she can share her experience of living with migraine with us, and we can get to know her a little bit better. How are you doing today, Alicia?
Good. How are you, Flynn?
I'm good, thank you. How did you first get involved with Migraine Australia, and when did you start volunteering?
So I first started volunteering in the middle of 2020. I first became involved with Migraine Australia through one of the old board members. Um, I guess the reason I wanted to volunteer with Migraine Australia was to give back. So I have a large advocacy over on Instagram, and I thought, why not develop more of a cohort and give back to something that's quite close to me, and also to be able to develop and give hope to people who are also in the depths of their disease and with no way out, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of us who currently feel very unsupported and feel like they're not getting the necessary support from their GPs and their neurologists, and being able to talk with them, not necessarily face to face, but just via the Facebook groups that we have and the ambassador support groups that we have now, I think is making a world of difference for some.
What do you do for Migraine Australia? Like, what is your current position?
A little bit of all-rounder. So 2020 last year, I came in and I was part of like the communication group, and then I had to take a short break because my health took a bit of a dip. And as we know, this disease is it's very unpredictable. We never know how it's going to behave. My current role with MA now is the membership officer. I also run the support group for the ambassador for the Perth group, and play a little bit of a role in, as you know, with the board. So RK reaches out to me every now and then to help to assist with certain strategies and different bits and bobs there.
What's your favourite part of volunteering with Migraine Australia?
Favourite part of volunteering is definitely being able to give back to something that has been a very big part of my life, and definitely being able to give resources and be able to give hope to those who don't necessarily have that right now. So I've been there once before where you feel very alone, where you feel like there is no way out of what you're feeling right now, and being able to give hope and just being able to throw ideas around of how they can use their treatment plan a little bit better and where they can go to next, I think is definitely something where I feel like I'm able to give back.
What type of migraine do you have, and how does it affect your life?
So I've had migraine for over 20 years in various different forms. I first had migraine when I was 14 years old, and I suffered from, I would say, aura, particularly with not much head pain at all. And then I went into my late teens and 20s with just your average, I had a migraine attack every now and then. So I would say that was just classic migraine. And then I went into my early 20s and had a debilitating vertigo attack when I was about 23, 24 years old. And I never got better from that moment onwards. I tried to look for a diagnosis for a long time before I took into my own into my own care about my treatment plan and whatnot. So my diagnosis is vestibular migraine, and then after having my daughter 6.5 years ago and having what is now classified as MOH, I became chronic. So I now deal with vestibular migraine, which is VM, and I have chronic migraine on the side. So the two like to have a little party every now and then and gang up. And I find it a little bit difficult to manage the likeness of the symptoms. And I feel a lot of the symptoms almost together. So they're never separated. They're always there. And I also have daily persistent headaches. So I'm in 24/7 pain, whether that's low, medium or high, every single day.
What are your main triggers?
So main triggers for me, number one would be stress. Number two is my sleep pattern. And number three is barometric pressure. So particularly with my VM, I find that the weather, I can almost tell the weather with my head. So if anyone needs to know the weather, I'm the weatherman. I've met lots of people in the migraine community who are similar, where they can almost tell the weather patterns with their head, and other people who aren't really affected by weather patterns at all. So particularly for me, weather is a big play factor in that. So if there's a storm coming, see you later, I'm out. Anything to do with humidity, I can't live there. I find it difficult to even be on holiday in a place where there is even any type of humidity even there. Yeah. I think if you add in a fourth, there is anything to do with MSG, preservatives, colouring, all those types of things. None of those play a part in anything that I do with my diet anymore.
What is your most bothersome symptom?
Most bothersome symptom. In the beginning or now?
Either, both?
In the beginning of my VM journey, I would say derealisation. So for those who don't know what derealisation symptoms look like or are to the outside, derealisation makes it feel like you're not connected to your body. So you literally look in the mirror and you feel like you're looking back at a person who isn't you. You can look down at your fingers and it feels like your fingers and your legs just aren't attached to you at all. So derealisation lasted for a very long time when I first had my first vertigo experience, and I've never got better since then. The derealisation symptoms have obviously rapidly reduced and they're no longer with me. I do find that they rear their little ugly head every now and then when I'm having a bit of a vestibular attack. And then second to that, I would say it's the pain. So for me, with my chronic migraine, it feels like my eyeballs are literally being pressed out of my head, like one of those stress balls, and pressure in my head, which also feels like my brain is about to kind of just overflow like a volcano out of the top of my head, which I'm sure everyone can relate to.
Mm-hmm. What, if anything, works best for you to manage your migraine attacks?
Are we talking preventative or are we talking to manage an actual attack?
Either, whatever you are wanting to share.
So I think it's a double-edged sword for me because I have VM and I have chronic migraine. It becomes very difficult to manage in terms of medications and what works well. So I've found that some medications in the past actually make my VM symptoms worse, but will take away some of the chronic migraine that I have. So I think what works for me well at the moment is when I feel an attack coming on, I literally take a triptan. I take 2 aspirin. So I'm literally on the aspirin bomb that a lot of people are talking about at the moment. That was something that became apparent to me about 3 or 4 years ago. So I'd never heard about that previously. And then from there, everyone around here calls me Ice Queen because you always find me wrapped with my Cold Tech Halo. I sleep in it every single night. It's part of just my preventative that I do every single night to kind of cool my brain down. I'm sure you can relate there. And then from there, I use a TENS machine because I get a lot of tension in the back of my shoulders and up my neck. And I use what's called a gusha. I'm not sure if you've ever heard about one of those before. Yeah, so it's like Chinese acupuncture that they use on their face. You can use spoons and all those types of things. So I use that particularly across when you've got that rapid tension in the tops of your shoulders. I find that really releases a lot of the tension that you would ordinarily feel, especially if your migraine attacks stem from your shoulders and your neck. And I use that kind of in collaboration with magnesium cream. So you've kind of got the two counteracting each other. And from there, it's rest, a dark room, and I often don't go to sleep, but I'll call it just self-care and resting for the rest of the day if and when I can. Being a mother is a little bit tricky sometimes.
How many kids do you have?
Just the one and done. She's almost 7.
Yeah. What is the most difficult thing about like being a parent and having migraine? This is an off the course question, but yeah, what is it like being a parent?
Sure. Being a parent and having migraine is really difficult. So in the beginning, when she was a newborn, and I was, I would say probably in the real depths of this disease and what I was dealing with, because I had a lot of my VM symptoms that had come back, whether it was hormones or whether it was, the rough pregnancy that I'd had, or whether it was just, the non-sleeping and those types of things. It was really difficult to manage symptoms, having a newborn and navigating this new life. And then as she became older and I started to kind of reach out to specialists and neurologists and started to get help for myself, a lot of things started to come together. So I went on preventatives. She was a lot older. The sleeping had, she was sleeping a lot better. And then from there, we started talking with her about, I truly believe that you can't hide pain from children either, no matter how, you can try, but children are very intuitive to their mothers, whether you like it or not. So we've been very open with her. And I think from there, she's become very empathetic. She's very caring. And we often do a lot of floor play. So we do things like puzzles, and she's happy to watch movies with me, while I'm laying down with an ice pack on my head. And she's really not bothered by not going outside and playing. She's just more than happy to stay inside and play with her dolls on the floor as long as she's close by. There's so many beautiful things that you can do with your children, even though you have this disease. And I thought in the beginning, like, this is awful. This is going to be the worst thing in the world. I'm never going to be able to be the greatest parent I thought I wanted to be in my mind. But actually, it's really what you make of it. And children don't care about going out and playing and going to play centres and all of those things. All they want is to be with their mum and be with their dad and be close. And so I've kind of almost learnt to encapsulate all of that and go, great, let's play with loom bands and, do all of those things that don't use great amounts of brain power, but she's still close and she can still say, well, we had so much fun today, Mum, that was amazing. Meanwhile, I've got 20 loom bands up my arm and, so I think hold that in your thoughts that parenting, there is no book. I know there are books, but there is no rule book for this. You have to make up the rules as you go. She is very empathetic, as I said. She's very caring. I think sometimes they do have their moments where they go, I've just had enough of this. And I think that's okay sometimes, because I've had enough of it too. But we just learn. We learn that we can't always do the plans that we always set out. So our plans are always a bit sketchy. We never overpromise. And she's happy to kind of go with that. But I think every family is very different in that approach as well. But I firmly believe that just being upfront with your children and saying, this is what mummy's dealing with and this is maybe how it feels, it builds this empathy as they grow up to go, actually, I can care for someone and I can show that I care for someone and I can show empathy and I can show all of those things and they can still be a kid at the same time. I think there's almost this part of parents who feel like they have to be a good parent by taking their children out all the time, and that's not always what it's about. So we've really we've built a little circle now where we all feel comfortable, and there's no dummy spits for saying, sorry, we can't do that today because mummy doesn't feel very well. It's a, team effort. We all pitch in and get stuff done.
That's really lovely. Yeah. Do you have any treatments you would recommend for people who are newly diagnosed, or like resources where they can learn about migraine?
So for people who have BM, my number one favourite resource to send them to is the Dizzy Cook. So Alicia also is the Dizzy Cook. She also has BM. She has a very long story that is very similar to a lot of us in the BM community. She fell down, had a vertigo attack. She's had to give up her job, and she's built this amazing space for people who have vestibular conditions to go and build their awareness of what they're essentially dealing with. And it's an amazing resource where people can build on their supplemental care. It's an amazing space where they can go and just grab recipes from the HYH diet. So that's the Heal Your Headache. but it's in a more simplified form where you just look at a recipe and you go, oh yeah, that's really simple to follow, or oh, there's a treatment pie there and that makes complete sense to my complete brain right now. So I send a lot of people over to her resources. I find it's just written in such a simplified way, and I get people all the time reaching out to me going, thank you so much. She's actually just had a baby of her own in the last few months as well, so now she's navigating being a new parent as well. So that would be kind of my number one resource. For people who have chronic migraine, there's lots of bloggers out there who freely share amazing resources on Instagram in terms of movement, for those who are interested in moving their bodies in, I would say, a non-impactful way, because there are lots of us who go, oh, exercise, that's not me. I'm allergic to it too, don't worry. It took me a long time to realise that we don't need to go and run to be able to move our bodies. But there are some other amazing resources out there in terms of chronic pain. So Adrienne Yoga is on YouTube. She has specific yoga videos for people who have chronic pain, where you can just sit on the floor, you can grab some blankets and some pillows. They're amazing resources. She has a whole set, they're all free. Emily from Movement with Migraine, she has amazing meditation resources on her Instagram handle. They're all free as well for those people who like to take a more holistic approach to their, their diagnosis and their healing. There is so many resources out there now, and more specifically, Migraine Australia has some really good resources on their website. And also within the support and ambassador groups, people are now freely sharing neurologists that, they've got really good rapport with, and those types of things. So I think they're kind of the main ones for me. It's kind of difficult I can't type them all to you at the moment, but they're the main ones, I would say, that I use.
Yeah. Do you have any pets, and do they seem to know or act differently when you're unwell?
Yes, I have a 12-year-old Cocker Spaniel. His name is Anzac. I got him 6 months into dealing with all my vestibular issues that I was having, and I would say he's probably the one that saved me. Does that make sense? So he my husband said no and I said yes, and we kind of combined powers and got this puppy, and he's so intuitive to everything. He's now in his elderly years, he's disabled, he's now completely blind, but in saying that, he always knows. And I think pets always know everything. So he knows every morning before the alarm clocks go off. He knows every day before someone walks in the door at night. I don't know how they know this time, but they do. Even before I have a migraine attack coming on, it's like he's nudging me in my leg. Mum, there's something going on here. And I'm like, what are you doing, mate? Like, what's going on, buddy? And then 2 hours later, I'll be like, oh, wow, like you were trying to tell me that there was something coming. He's always been like that. And even when I had my daughter, he's very much like that when she's ill and sick. So I think they're absolutely right in saying that dogs are super intuitive in terms of sickness, health, diseases, anything like that. And he's always by my side. So he can sniff out when I'm not feeling well. He's just always there by someone's side. I think that just comes naturally for him now. And even being blind, he still has an impeccable nose.
Yeah. Do you work or study either currently or in the past? And what's your area of expertise?
So I do work. My predominant field of work is project management. I'm currently working in a consulting role that I do part-time 4 days a week, just to kind of have that work-life balance of being a mum, working, trying to take control of my own illness and those types of things, and just have that 1 day of kind of buffer at the end of the week to go, I can breathe now. And I think I had a bit of time off at the beginning of the year, which I think was great for my health. I made a bit of a dip last year. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a great thing that I can still work. I'm sure to some people that's amazing that you can still work having vestibular migraine and chronic migraine. It's really tricky to manage. So I never know from one day to the next how I'm going to wake up, how I'm going to go to sleep, whether I'm going to be able to go to work the next day, whether I'm going to be at work, and whether I'm going to need to come home. I find the juggle really difficult, but I will say I'm quite well managed at the moment. So I go from being almost, I don't like these words, but I go from being chronic to episodic like a lot, if that makes sense. So I kind of go from like every kind of couple of months to being quite well controlled in an episodic kind of way to then moving into a chronic. So I kind of go in various waves all the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes the weeks come unstuck and I'll go from one day to the next feeling like, is this going to be how I'm going to feel for like ever now? So I think face value as well. We don't often look how we feel as well. This disease is very invisible, and I'm so grateful that, you know, Migraine Australia are picking up the pieces where it's needed and giving more visibility.
Do you have any interesting hobbies?
Apart from being a mum and working and being a wife, do I have time?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you?
Yeah, so last year during COVID, when we were all kind of destined to work from home for 5 months and I had my daughter off school, that was fun. I kind of took a little bit of a vested interest in genealogy, which was fun. So I DNA sampled my entire family and started like digging for information on my grandparents. They have a big European background that I wanted to start knowing all about. And I was lucky enough to find cousins that now live in Germany from Poland. And it's just amazing to see that there is more of us, given that my grandparents immigrated here from German slave labour camps in the 50s. So I didn't really know much about the extended families that were left behind, and I've been able to kind of build new connections. And I think, you know, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the end of my questions. Did you have any final comments you'd like to add?
I think from me, don't stop believing in hope. And I know that sounds cliche, but when you are in the depths of the disease that you're dealing with and you feel like you don't have any help or support from GPs and neurologists and you're kind of bouncing around from one person to the other, I've been there. I know what that feels like. Don't stop. Don't stop ever advocating for yourself. Don't stop ever communicating with other people and connecting with other people who are like-minded like you. And I just can't stress enough that there is a way out and we can all provide hope to each other.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, Alicia. It's lovely talking to you and getting to know you more and hear about your experience with migraine.
Thank you.